tutorial, I'm going to demonstrate the techniques used in my new pattern that has the slickest name ever, Toe Up Gusset Socks. Maybe I'll come up with a better name for it, but I think it kind of says what it is, Toe Up Gusset Socks. And if you're not a sock knitter, that might not sound very interesting, but it is a way of getting the best of both worlds. You get the fit of a gusset sock, a sock that actually has a heel flap and a gusset, but then the convenience of toe up. And a gusset sock usually fits a little bit well better. I would say different people like different things, but people who have higher arches, or it's a better shape, I would say, than just a short row heel. And so people like to knit those, but they usually just come in cuff down patterns. You also get the benefits of toe up, which means you can start a sock at the toe and just keep, and knit the foot and knit the heel and just keep knitting and knitting until you run out of yarn or half of your yarn, so you can make a second sock, and you never have to worry about having enough yarn to finish the foot if you're knitting cuff down, or having enough yarn to finish the second sock, or if it, it's easier to knit toe up. Now I know other people have designed toe up socks that have a gusset and a heel flap. I did not look at any of those. This nearly broke my brain when I was writing this pattern, but it's fun. I like doing stuff like this. But I didn't want any influence other than just my brain and my understanding of sock construction to put this together. It's not really very difficult to work, but I'm going to run through all of the techniques here. We're using Judy's Magic Cast On for the toe, and then some simple decreases, and then the gusset increases, which is crazy because most socks have gusset decreases, but we have gusset increases when we work the other direction, and some short row shaping for the turning the heel flap, and then the cuff, and that's it. And these are knit for women's average foot width, any shoe size. You can also use any hank of sock yarn that you want. 100 grams of sock yarn will get you a pair of women's socks, no problem. And I have a couple of examples here. This first one is a solid color sock. I'm going to give you a close-up of this so you can see exactly what the heel looks like. And on this one, it looks like a two-sided sock on the monitor, but it is two socks. This one is self-striping yarn that I used, Turtlepurl yarn, a Stroll down Duckworth Street. And I only have one of each sock. I'll have a pair. This is not a pair. I'll have a pair to match each one of these. I finished these. I'm still working on these. I think that's it. If you would like to get your copy of the pattern to follow along, just click the little eye in the upper right-hand corner. That'll take you to my website where there'll be all the details for everything you need. The gauge, the needles, everything else is all there. So next up, we're going to get started with the cast on. If you've got your pattern and your yarn, I'm sure you have 100 grams of some sock yarn you're excited to use. We are ready to go. First, I want to give you a close-up look at the socks. So let's go ahead and take a look. Now this one I knit in self-striping yarn. It isn't quite as easy to see, so I decided to knit it in a solid color too, so you can see how different a gusset sock looks from just a short row heel. This looks quite different. And it's a nice fit. I like both kinds of socks, but this is something different. And in this tutorial, we are going to use Judy's Magic Cast On. And I'm also going to use much bigger needles, much thicker yarn, so you can see what I'm doing. So I'm not going to knit the exact numbers in the pattern. I'm going to do kind of an abbreviated version of the pattern to make it go kind of quickly. I'm just demonstrating the techniques. I'll tell you that on the socks that I just showed you, I used flexi flips for the Judy's Magic Cast On. You can use either. So the first thing I'm going to do is to leave myself a little bit of a tail. You're not going to need much. And make a slip knot and put that on a needle. And line those two needles up next to each other. I have the tail end kind of down here and the working yarn up here. My pincher fingers between those, getting myself set up for what looks like a slingshot cast on. And now we're going to wrap the needles with the yarn to get our cast on. So I have a stitch on the back needle. I want one on the front. So I'm going to take that front needle, go past the yarn and grab it and pull down. Now back to the top needle, past the yarn on my thumb, grab it and pull up, past, whoops. I'm just going to do a few stitches here. But I'll tell you, you can't stop in the middle of this cast on. You have to keep going until you're finished. So now I'm going to turn the work, because this is the magic loop starting point when you have both needles, all the stitches close to the tips of the needles and the needle tips facing the right. I'm going to kind of wrap my working yarn and my tail end. It doesn't really secure it much, but it helps a little bit. And I'm going to pull what is essentially the back needle here, the bottom needle long, and just knit across these stitches. Okay, turn the work and get myself back into magic loop starting position. And the needle that you pull long is always the one with the working yarn attached to it. So my needle is attached to this back, my working yarn is attached to this back needle. I'm going to pull that long, and this next stitch is this slip knot. And then each stitch on the rest of this row is twisted. So I'm going to knit it through the back loop to untwist it. And this is just for the cast on. Okay, and now turn the work back into magic loop starting position. Now we actually start the toe increases. My working yarn is on this needle, so I'll pull that needle long. I'm going to KFB, knit front back. And KFB at the very last stitch. Turn the work back into magic loop starting position. You're probably starting to get the hang of this, right? KFB. Knit to the last stitch. And KFB. Now the increase rounds are only every other round. So this next round is a plain knit round. And I just want to talk about like starting to get the shape of the toe in all of this. Because it's kind of a flat piece of knitting now. We do want it to start kind of folding over on itself to turn into a toe shape. So I'm going to put the needle in here and really focus on pulling that first stitch tightly. And when you look back at the stitch before, this one right here, I smashed it into oblivion because it's on the cord, it's not on the needle, and it's going to make it difficult to slide the stitches along here when I turn the work, but it's all going to be okay. It's going to start getting everything shaped the right way. I don't always pull stitches that hard on magic loop, but so this first stitch, I'm really going to pull it to try to pull those two halves together. Okay, and eventually it will be a toe shape, and you won't have to stay on magic loop. I personally don't love knitting magic loop, so once I get a few rounds of the toe done, or more than this, but a few more rounds of the toe done, I switch to 9-inch circulars usually, which is why I have this done. Look at here. So this is the toe finished. It ends up being a toe shape. And once I finish the toe, I marked that round with a little piece of scrap yarn so that I can make a second sock that exactly matches. I can show you here on these socks, because I've only knit one of these, I need to knit the second one. I marked the end of the toe, the beginning of the heel, and the end of the heel. Is that what I marked? Yeah. so that I can make the second sock exactly match, because this number here is a variable and this number here is a variable. I want to make sure they're going to be the same length and the same shoe size. So now we're going to talk about the gusset increases. And I love knitting and flying on the cuffs and the foot using 9-inch circulars, but I don't like to try to do any shaping with 9-inch circulars. So I'm going to switch to DPNs for this part. So in working the gusset increases, at the beginning of the round here, first thing I'm going to do is make one right, and that means picking the bar up between the two stitches, putting my left needle in from back to front and knitting through the front loop of that stitch. Make one right, and well, the pattern has you knitting a different number than I'm going to knit. I'm so nice to myself. You see this marker coming up, this orange marker? When I was getting these pieces ready for video, I thought to myself, you know what? I can't shoot video and count at the same time. I'll just go ahead and mark where I need to knit up to. That was nice of me. That was nice. That was me being nice to myself. And now I want to make one left. And I'm going to keep switching to DPNs here and just knit across. I'm just going to show you these first couple of rounds because there's a setup here. This is kind of a setup round. You know, I think the reason that I like to switch to DPNs anytime there's shaping is that as much as I like 9-inch circulars, there isn't enough to hang on to really get the needle in there easily to do a more complicated stitch like a make one stitch or even a knit two together. They're so short. Okay, that was the first setup round. Now the second setup round, actually you're going to knit a round, a plain round. And then the second setup round is knit one, make one right, which isn't as easy when you don't have a knit round between like you're supposed to. Place a marker and then knit the number in the pattern. The pattern tells you to, which is different than what I have here. Oops. Place another marker. No, not yet. I was doing this correctly. Place another marker, make one left, and that last stitch. Okay, what's going to happen here, I wanted to get the markers on there. We're finished with the setup rounds. You're going to increase on the outside of each one of these markers every other round. This stitch count between the two markers is never going to change. Increase that and you're going to end up with a bunch of stitches on either end here. And when you do that, that's how you get this shape here, right? That's the increases along the gusset. I think that's all I had to this one. Yes. So next up, in the next section, we're going to talk about turning the heel and working the heel flap. And from then on, it's just knitting cuff. And that's coming up. Once you finish the gusset increases, it's time to turn the heel. Because we're working toe up, everything's kind of backwards. We're going to turn the heel and then work the heel flap. Let me just go ahead and show you. Let's take a look. Okay, I'm still on double pointed needles here, and I have, let me figure this out. Okay, here I am. I've actually separated the all of the stitches that we are working on, the gusset increases. I have that on 2 needles here instead of just 1, because I kind of want all of these on 1 needle while I work the heel shaping. So I've knit across all those instep stitches with the 2 markers here, and I'm on the last stitches of the round, and we are going to use German short rows to work the heel shaping. So the numbers, of course, because I'm using these giant needles and big yarn, the actual numbers are going to be different than what I'm working here, but the technique is the same. You'll knit across on row 1 the number the pattern tells you. And you'll still have stitches left over here. Turn the work, slip the first stitch, and then we're going to pull up on that stitch and yarn forward to purl, leaving us with kind of a funny double stitch. If you haven't worked German short rows before, they're pretty great. Excuse me. You'll knit up to the next number. Turn the work. Yarn forward and slip that first stitch, and then yank up on that stitch again to make another funny double stitch. And you'll knit up to the next one. I'll demonstrate one more time. Turn the work. On the wrong side of the work, you slip that stitch, pull up, yarn forward to purl, and on the right side of the work, you turn the work, or now I'm on the right side, yarn forward, slip that stitch, and pull up on that to make a funny double stitch. Now we're going to get a good look at the funny double stitch, because when you finish the short rows, the pattern explains all this very clearly, but you'll come to these funny double stitches and you just knit them together. German short row complete. See those 2 halves? Just going to knit them together. Okay, so you're going to just be working on these last stitches of the round, and you will finish the short row shaping, which will turn the heel, so you end up with this, it was a foot, and now we're going around the heel. It actually is pretty amazing how it works. And now we're going to start working the heel flap. I'll tell you, the easiest thing for me, because we're going to be decreasing these stitches from the gusset back out again. The easiest way that I like to do this is to put these gusset increase stitches, the ones on the outside of the marker, onto the needle with the heel flap stitches, or the turning the heel stitches. And the easiest way to do that with double pointed needles is to use a 3rd needle. I'm going to transfer these onto a 3rd needle, back over here, put the marker here. It's a little fiddly, but it's only a minute. And then I will go ahead and just slide these onto this needle and just start working with this needle. Let me check my pattern here to see if I have, I do. I want to make sure I was slipping the first stitch. Okay, slip the first stitch, knit across the heel stitches. I have a lot of needles going on right now. It's a nice thing about bamboo DPNs is No matter how many you have going, they hang on, they don't slide out. You don't have to pay attention to all of them. Okay, when you get to the last stitch before the marker, slip that stitch, remove the marker, put that stitch back, and knit 2 together. I'm gonna get a drink of water here in a minute. Put the marker back on, slip the first stitch, and purl back. And what we're gonna do is just keep the same number of heel stitches going, but eat up one of the gusset increases every time we get to the end of the row, or end of the heel stitches. And that's gonna make the heel flap. So you purl across to the marker, and the marker is unfortunately right where it needs to be, but it's also in the way, which is why it's all this taking it out and putting it back. So slip that stitch, take out the marker. At home, I always put the stitch marker in my mouth, but I won't do it here because someone will say, hey, you're gonna choke on that. Purl those 2 stitches together, turn the work, replace the marker. That wasn't in my mouth, slip the first stitch, and then knit across. And so you're just gonna keep doing that until you've eaten up all of the extra stitches on both sides. And in doing that, you end up with this section of the heel of the sock. Well, it's kind of too wide for me to show it. But we had increases, increases, and it's this section of the heel, where you're working the decreases on either side. And that's really it. Once you finish decreasing out the gusset stitches for the heel, then it's just a matter of knitting the cuff as long as you want it, or until you use up half your yarn, and then knitting the ribbed cuff so that you have a nice ribbed cuff to help the sock stay up. Anyway, that's it. And you can switch back to knitting on 9-inch circulars or flexi flips or magic loop or stay on DPN, whatever you want, however you want to do it. Anyway, again, if you want to get your copy of the pattern to knit this, go ahead and click the little eye in the upper right-hand corner. I had a lot of fun designing these. I'm going to have a lot of fun knitting more pair. I hope you do too. Good luck.